Okay, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Yeah. Shibidwap. This is your host, Pat Flynn. Today, we're going to have a little heart to heart. I'm going to talk to you, brother to brother or brother to sister, as the case may be, about sort of my journey in a lot of different pursuits, what I have learned from this journey. And I'm going to try and answer a question, a very general question that I get asked very often in many different areas, whether it's in fitness or philosophy or business. And that is the question of success, or how, and it's usually pointed at me, right? How have I done this thing? How have I gotten from A to B? Because it seems like that person would also like to get from A to B. How do you get a book published? Or how do you lose 30 pounds and actually keep it off? How do you start a business and actually have it be successful? And these are things I have actually accomplished, and I've learned things along the way, important things, and I would like to try and articulate some of these things for you today. And I want to provide a sort of overriding theme that I think has certainly been strongly reinforced um, throughout my experience of these various pursuits. So, good morning to you. Let me know what you're drinking in the comments. And if you have any questions or anything else you would like to discuss, I would love to hear from you. How was everybody's weekend? It's good. It's good to see you. Anthony, good to see you. He says 15 minutes before time. Yeah, I'm energetic today. I'm ready to go. In fact, I'm pretty well caffeinated. I drank some weird coffee this morning, so bear with me if you see just like the occasional spasm here and there. So here's the theme I want to talk about, and then I'm going to mention some more resources towards the end that I think will help you out. And it's this idea of enthusiastic ignorance, and how I think this can be a really powerful thing. It's also this idea of not asking permission. Now, I'm not saying like go out and be a criminal or do nefarious things. I'm really just saying this. If you want to get something done, you can't ask permission from yourself or other people to get started. You have to get started. That seems almost trivially true. But I will tell you, I'm in contact with a lot of people all the time through various means. And the biggest issue that I see consistently, again, whether it comes to working out, whether it comes to writing, whether it comes to academic success or business success, is people, they overthink things, they rationalize things, they think they have to have every little thing figured out, every little thing researched, everything planned to a T before they can even get started. And then they never get started. And this is a huge obstacle. So I want to help you clear this obstacle, and I want to help you feel okay with it being messy. And I want to give you the permission you don't need to get started on the things that you want to pursue and the things you want to achieve. Let me give some background. Let me give some background here. I grew up very overweight, very out of shape. I was never athletic. So we're going to talk about my fitness background, and then we'll talk about some other things that I've pursued and gone after. And come high school, guys, I don't know if you guys actually know the sort of the moment for me. We all sort of have a moment, a turning point of when we decide we need to either do things differently or we need to step up our game. Or yeah, so for me, it came in. I think I told the story in the podcast before, but I'll let you in on it again. Early high school, I think it was, or maybe late middle school. I was hanging around with a bunch of my friends. We were playing music, and all guys. And as jerks in middle school do, we're always constantly, kind of picking on each other and stuff like that. One of the guys in the band decided we should have a wet T-shirt contest of just the guys, to see who had the biggest quote unquote man boobs. And guess who won? It was this guy. It was Pat Flynn. And that was like a deeply, I kind of like pretended to laugh at the time. It was like a deeply embarrassing moment for me, where I realized, yeah, this isn't who I want to be anymore. I don't want to be like the guy in my friends group who's the fat guy that just like gets picked on all the time. I'm not trying to give a super sob story here. I had a lot of friends. I wasn't like, heavily traumatized through my childhood, but that was a reality for me. It was something I had to deal with. And I decided at that moment that I was just going to get started getting in shape. I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea how difficult it was going to be. And one thing I've learned in life is that anything you want to do that's worth it and good will always take probably about 10 times as long as you think it will. And it will always probably be 10 times more difficult than you think it will be. And it might even be 10 times more expensive than you originally think it will be. And this is why I want to emphasize the importance of just getting started and not thinking about things. If I would have thought through every single challenge, obstacle, setback, and failure I would have faced from going from somebody who was very overweight, very out of shape, to somebody who literally runs a business teaching other people how to use and swing kettlebells to get in shape, that would have completely overwhelmed me. And I probably would have just thrown my hands up and said, forget it. That there's no way I would ever be able to do that. So it was actually because I had just this sort of enthusiastic ignorance. I had this passion, and I didn't have much of a plan. I didn't know the first thing about exercise or nutrition. In fact, what I did after this like deeply embarrassing moment is I went upstairs into my friend's house, opened his fridge, and like took out an orange. Because I figured, hey, fruit's healthy. This is my first step. That was me not asking permission. That was me just getting started. And then, at home, I knew my mom, she was sort of a serial dieter and had all the fad diet books in the basement. And Pat Flynn just wandered down there. And I just started trying to figure things out. Like most people, I was deeply confused about what does healthy eating actually look like? What sort of exercise should I be doing? And I made a lot of mistakes, and I had a lot of setbacks, and I hit a lot of plateaus, and it took me forever to really just kind of figure things out. But I figured things out as I went along. I looked towards people that seemed to be successful in the way that I wanted to be successful. And I tried to analyze them and figure out what they were doing and imitate them and all that sort of thing. But the really important thing is I didn't ask anybody to get started. Changing my life, getting in shape. In fact, if I would have mentioned it to any of my friends at the time, they would have laughed at me, right? Well, look who's laughing now. Jagweeds. And certainly, didn't have a lot of, family support. A lot of my family, passed down these bad eating and movement habits to me to begin with. So I just got started and I figured things out as I went. Now, tie this into other things that I've let's talk about writing and publishing. People ask me, hey, how do you get published? How do you start as a writer? So let me let's do a little show and tell. This is something I know a little something about. This was my first book that was ever published. And I got this book deal. This is called Paleo Workouts for Dummies. Terrible title. I got this book deal when I was still before I had finished my undergrad, in fact. And I had fallen deeply in love with movement and fitness. So even though I was going to school not for physiology or exercise science, because I had gotten really into lifting and kettlebells and martial arts, I was just training people in college as a way to pay tuition. I had started various boot camps. And had just loved doing it. And on my blog, I was writing about my fitness ideas. I was shooting various, videos and stuff like that. You guys kind of know that. And I decided that I should like to write a book. I should like to write a book. And I told somebody, I made the mistake of telling somebody who was much older than me, and he himself was successful in business, that I was going to get a book published. And he sort of, he didn't tell me that was crazy or being unrealistic, but he kind of smirked and laughed. And I wasn't asking his permission. I was just telling him what I was going to do. Now, the concern, and so, by the time I was 30, I had 4 books published, like traditionally published. I've done a ton of self-published stuff too, but 4 books published. First one was with Wiley, major publisher. We have this one in 2019, How to Be Better at Almost Everything. And then here's my newest, translation that came in. Pretty cool. So I know a thing or two, and I had success in publishing books. But people see my books and they see this, but what you don't see is the mess that went into all of this. You don't see how many times I was rejected. For the number of books and articles I have out there, they're the size of the number of books and articles that never got accepted, that were completely rejected, is enormous. It's embarrassingly huge, right? You guys don't see all of that. And of course, like, I'm not, talking about it much, because those things were not successes, right? So, and it wasn't like this was all just at the beginning. It wasn't like I just had a bunch of book ideas and pitched agents and publishers and got rejected, and then I got the one book deal, and then everything was just rainbows and unicorns after that. No. In fact, before this book, before How to Be Better at Almost Everything, I sort of had to start almost over from scratch, because this book was so quirky and different, and I really wanted to write it, but my agent and Wiley, they didn't really want me to write that book, because I was having success, it's sort of in this area. And, publishers don't usually like to take risk. If you are kind of winning at something, they don't want you to switch games, right? They want you to keep doing the thing that's successful. But I was done writing fitness books. I had said pretty much what I wanted to say. I wanted to say something different. So I went through an enormous struggle again. And I had to get a new agent. So I had to pitch new agents on this new idea I had. And then we had to pitch different publishers. So it wasn't even like, once you kind of get that first win, that it's just wins all after that, and you never struggle again. That's not it at all. The number of rejections I have had in my life, books, articles, women, it's embarrassingly huge, right? But the one thing that has sort of pushed me through all of that is that I've never asked anybody sort of permission to just go out there and pitch myself, to get started, to write the books, to write the articles, to contact the agents, to contact the editors, and to just do it, to just get started. And this has been a consistent theme that has served me really well in my life, where I never have everything figured out when I first get started. I didn't know the first thing about book publishing. I didn't know the first thing about starting a business. I didn't know the first thing about getting in shape when I started any of these things. I knew less than nothing, right? And but when I mean I know less than nothing, like, the things that I thought I knew were the things that you actually shouldn't be doing. So it was like, it wasn't that I just didn't know anything. It's like the things that I thought I knew were like the wrong type of things, right? So it was worse than, it would almost be better if I knew nothing. But I just knew, like, yeah. So what I'm trying to inspire here is that you shouldn't wait for I heard this phrase one time, the permission fairy. You don't need the permission fairy. You just get started. You get started doing what you want to do. You figure things out as you go. You expect, and this is key, you expect there to be roadblocks. You expect there to be obstacles. You expect there to be disappointments. In fact, I just had a rejection last week, and that was disappointing. But then I also had an acceptance last week in the writing world. So I had one disappointment. Yeah, it's a bummer. It's never not a bummer when you get rejected. It is. But then I also had a win. So rejection is part of the process. Failure is part of the process. Nobody ever goes just a straight line right to success, right? You ask anybody who's ever done like anything, and if they're being honest, if they're being absolutely honest, as I'm trying to be with you, almost certainly the just sheer like tally marks of failures and rejections and all that is going to completely eclipse the successes. But to me, they're not really failures, right? They're not really failures unless you stop there, right? So I look back at all the things that didn't pan out, all the fitness programs that didn't do it for me, didn't reach my goal, or the books or articles I submitted that never got published, or even all the different business ventures that I tried that didn't quite get there. I only would see those as failures if I stopped there. But I didn't. I kept going, and I learned from those rejections, from the things that just failed to launch. And it was because I learned from the mess that I was able to eventually make something that wasn't messy? I see questions and comments coming in. Please keep them in and help me direct this conversation a little bit more, and I'll be happy to answer what I can from you. But the point is this, right? Life is messy. If you try to figure everything out before you get started, you'll become overwhelmed. You'll become intimidated. Don't do that. Here's what I recommend instead. In fact, I talk about it in my little green book. I talk about a sort of minimum information approach to anything you want to do. And what I mean by that is just research something just enough to get started and tackle the sort of immediate task at hand, and leave it at that. And then just put foot to proverbial pavement and just get at it. Don't try and figure everything out right away. There's just things that you could know that you don't need to know right now. And you should just not worry about that, right? And then worry about it when you get to that part of the process. Because what matters is that you're actually just doing stuff, that you're putting pen to paper or hand to barbell, right? Or you're crafting actual, yeah, products and services to sell in your business. So yeah, call this a low information or minimum information diet. Figure out just the fewest things you need to actually start taking action. But what you don't want to get into, and I see so many people do this in so many different areas, is they just are in like perpetual research mode, right? They never take any action. They never get started. Instead, they feel they need to like know enough to have permission to get started. Does that make sense? Have you guys ever fallen into that? They feel, I don't know, they feel like unqualified unless they have a certain level of head knowledge about something before they can get started. I'm saying don't do that. I'm saying figure out the minimum you need to just, not fall immediately off of a cliff, and then just start hammering away. I'll bring up the example of music, one of my great loves. There's different types of knowledge, right? I'm somebody who took a lot of music theory in my life, but there's a difference between understanding music theory and actually being a guitar player. I could have studied music theory till it started pouring out of my ears, and in some aspects I did, but that wasn't what made me a good guitar player. What made me a good guitar player is I just started learning songs, right? I just started playing. It's like riding a horse, which I know nothing about, right? But you can study horse biology all day long, but that doesn't give you the type of knowledge that somebody who's like a master horseback rider has. That's a knowledge you only gain through experience. And what I'm trying to emphasize here is when it comes to being productive, the type of knowledge that matters most is that experiential knowledge. Now, it doesn't mean you don't learn from mentors, you don't research, because you do want to be efficient and effective. But if you just get trapped in this perpetual cycle of trying to figure everything out before you get started, you will never get started. You will never get started. Or you will feel overwhelmed by everything you have to do. And then you'll throw your hands up and say, you know what, this isn't worth it. There's no way I could ever do that. Don't do that. Just get started. Figure things out as you go. Make a mess, enjoy the mess, learn from the mess, and refine the process. I'll talk about my business very quickly, and then I'll start taking your guys' questions and comments, because these are like the three things that I get asked about the most in terms of like life advice. How do I get in shape? How do I start my own business or increase my income? And how do I get published or something like that? Nobody asked me about my music, maybe because I haven't quite cleared a certain threshold in that aspect of my life yet. That's okay. That's fair enough. I started my business almost accidentally, right? So I'm in college. I'm writing this silly blog that I had back then. I get this book deal, and I realize that I want to, I just want to be an entrepreneur, right? I just want to run my own business. And by the way, for people who, I don't share details about my personal life that often, but my wife is stay at home. And my business is what pays all the bills, and it really, and it not only pays all the bills, but it enables me to do a lot of stuff that is not like economically advantageous. In fact, it's sort of an economic detriment, right? I mean, take all the like philosophy stuff I do, philosophy for the people, that in no way contributes to my income. In many ways, probably actively detracts from it. But it's because I've been able to sort of build this business that I have that allows me to do other projects that are really meaningful to me, and that I hope are meaningful to you as well. And to me, that was one of the primary motivations for wanting to start my own business is one, I just think I'm congenitally incapable of working for somebody else. Like, I just don't think that I could ever do it. I've never had a quote unquote real job a day in my life. There's something just wrong with me in that respect. But also, it wasn't about just becoming super rich or anything like that. That has never had much appeal to me. It was about a sort of autonomy that I wanted in my life, an autonomy to kind of pursue the things that mattered most to me, to try and pursue various passion projects, and to have a sort of an economic base that would allow me to be as creative as I wanted to. That was what was interesting to me about really starting a business. And when I started my business, I didn't know anything about running there's not a single entrepreneur in my family line ever. Never been a single business owner that I've ever known, right? So I didn't have anybody in my family I could talk to about this. By the way, do I say family weird? My wife says that I say family weird. Family. It's just this Delco accent. You can take the boy out of Delco. You can't take the Delco out of the boy, apparently. So what did I do? I read a couple books and I got started. I realized, okay, there's some skills that I need to get good at. I need to get good at sales. I need to get good at copywriting. Seems like having an email list is important. Seems like advertising is important. So let me say this, right? Because I talk about sort of this low information diet. I think you should read 5 good books on something you want to pursue right at the beginning, and then leave it at that until you just start hacking away. And then you feel like you've actually made some progress, that it makes sense again to read another book. Like, if you just read 5 good books on something, like 5 legitimately good books on something, that's probably all this quote information you need to make sure you don't just spin completely in circles in any one of your pursuits. But if you've read 20 to 50 books and 1,000 articles on something and you still haven't gotten started, that's a huge problem, my friends. And I have people who contact me about, on Instagram and all these other places, asking me like advice on stuff that they legit know more than me about, like fitness, for example. Like, they legitimately like know more about fitness in terms of the various theoretical and physiological aspects. They just haven't gotten started. They have the sort of book knowledge, but they don't have the experiential knowledge. They don't have the habits. They don't have the practical wisdom. And for those of you who are following on the Aristotle study, that practical wisdom is important, right? It's not to say the book knowledge doesn't matter. There's always this sort of this sort of bleed over, but you need that experience. You can only learn through practice, through actually doing something. There are certain things that you can learn that you can only learn the hard way, like swinging a cat by its tail. That teaches you something. It teaches you something you can't learn from a book, right? Very important lesson. Well, I'm saying the same thing. There's things that you learn that you can only learn by actually trying, doing, and often failing. And in my life, those are very frequently the most valuable experiences. The rejections, the slip-ups, the plateaus, all of that are just such opportunities to really master what you're after. So don't ask anybody's permission. Don't ask, and including yourself. How often I get messages of people saying, Pat, I just don't feel like I'm qualified or I'm ready to do this. I say, what are you waiting for, man? Just do it. Just get started. Just go after what is important to you. You'll mess up. You'll get rejected. You'll fall down. You'll scrape your knee. So what? Happens to me all the time. I'm constantly getting my ass kicked. That's all I do is get my ass kicked. Like, literally, oftentimes in martial arts, but with rejections and failures all the time. But I got started, and the best thing I ever did was I got started, I fell in love, and I started building the momentum and habits. And once you have the momentum and habits, that's what carries you through those difficult times. And there are difficult times, very, very difficult times, for anything that's worth pursuing. So let me recommend a book that I think will be good for you guys. I've recommended this before. It's actually sort of a cult classic. It's an easy book. It's a quick read. And I'm not a big fan of motivational stuff. This sort of talk is rare for me. Like, I don't know. It's not my thing. I'm not a motivational speaker. I'm not a preacher. So I hope this is helpful. And I'm also not a fan of like motivational books, but this one's really good. This is called The War of Art by Steven Pressfield. And the subtitle is Break Through the Blocks and Win Your Inner Creative Battles. Have you guys read this book? If not, it's a short book. It's really well written. And I think it sets all the right expectations. In fact, if I were to recommend like any book about the reality of winning the battles that actually matter in life, this might be it. This isn't like a book that is super detailed in how to build a business or get in shape, but it really does give you the right mindset. It really does give you the right expectations, the right framework, I think, to win your creative battles. And it's focused on writing, but you can take this advice and apply it to anything, to fitness and business. In fact, what Pressfield says in this book, I think, is really profound. He talks about this idea of resistance, capital R resistance. It's like this force that's constantly working against you. And he'll say, look, resistance will increase in direct proportion to like how important and good something would be in your life and how close you are to actually achieving that. So the more like important or significant something would be to your actual flourishing, expect more resistance. And the closer you are to actually hitting your goal, expect more resistance as well. And then he gives you all the right mindset tools to handle resistance. And the big thing is to not think that there won't be any resistance, but to understand how to handle it and deal with it as you get there. Okay, let's take your guys' questions and comments now, and then I'm going to sign off and get back to work. Got to try and fix that thing up that got a hard rejection the other day. Okay. Nate, good to see you. He says, not even 9 o'clock, and you're already coming at me with this title. I'm coming at all you guys. Just get started. Pat the man. Well, thank you, Ishmael. I really appreciate that. Anthony says, I'm happy to report that Lopsided was done and dusted first thing in this morning. So Lopsided, let me mention this quickly, is the daily workout that I shared to my email subscribers. And it's all one-arm swings and pressing and pull-ups. That was that routine. If you're not on my email list, you should do it because it's the cool place to be. And you can join right at the website 101kettlebellworkouts.com. That's 101kettlebellworkouts.com. And and you'll get cool workouts and also stuff like this. In fact, this podcast happened because of an idea I had for my email list. I talked about literally today this idea of sort of enthusiastic ignorance, not asking permission, just getting started. And then I said to myself, I'm going to go do a podcast on that because I have more to say. So if you like what we're doing here, you'll probably like the email list. All right. Anthony says, still waiting for Fat Pat and gym photos. They exist, my friend. We'll get you the old fat photos. All right, here we go. Only someone who is doing nothing makes no mistakes. Yeah, I sort of agree with that and sort of don't, because I think doing nothing is making a mistake. So they won't get all the sort of rejections and failures and disappointments that comes along with pursuing something meaningful. But I mean, like, what could be more of a mistake? What could be more of a failure than just not getting started, of not pursuing anything at all? I don't know, man. Alex says, this title reminds me of Nassim Taleb's Skin in the Game. Yeah, that's a pretty good book. I remember I read that years ago, and I definitely agree with the thesis that it helps to have skin in the game. So maybe we could talk about that a little bit. The idea of having skin in the game is you have something to lose. And when it comes to various pursuits, it does help to have something to lose, right? Because then you have more sort of internal and maybe external motivation to get something done. So how do you increase skin in the game? I mean, there's some, I guess, cheap ways, and there's some more substantial ways. I mean, for me, with when it came to my health and my fitness, another side of the story wasn't just a sort of embarrassment I felt in my little social circles, but I actually at one point went to my doctor, probably around the same time. This might have been around 8th grade. And she told me straight up, she said, Pat, if you don't like change the way that you live, your eating and your general inactivity, you might have a heart attack by the time you're in your 40s or 50s. And that would be a great shame. And I forget this doctor's name, but I owe her a lot because she gave me a lot of skin in the game. I didn't want to die early or be riddled with disease. So even though that skin in the game was always there, I didn't realize how much skin was in the fitness game at that young age. So she brought that to my awareness, and that gave me sort of a skin in the game. There's really something on the line here, right? Even when my business was starting out early, I made the kind of call right towards the end of my undergraduate years that I was not going to pursue a corporate career, and I was gonna go and just do things on my own. And that meant, look, it was either sink or swim. I didn't have really a quote unquote safety net. I either like had to make this work, or I would have dug myself into a really big hole. So I had just a lot of like just real life economic pressure to make my business work, because I had sort of I just let go of the potential sort of traditional corporate career opportunities that were more or less expected of me coming out of my undergrad with focus in economics and finance. I just said, no, I'm just gonna pursue this. So that was real skin in the game. And even though I wanted to do it because I loved what I was doing, having really something to lose, namely a roof over my head, was very motivating, right? Very, very motivating. There's also just social skin in the game. You can just tell people, lots of people, that you're committed to something, ask them to hold you accountable. There's financial skin in the game in the sense that I think if you really do want to pursue something, you should pay somebody to be your mentor, and you should pay them an amount that is actually uncomfortable, right? You should have a coach. You should have somebody who can be your trail guide. You pay for their services, because if not, then I think that's just kind of being rude. But also you should pay for their services because it gives you skin in the game, and all the better if it's expensive, because you want to feel like if you don't do what they say, you've really lost something. So finding a good coach, hiring a good mentor, investing in them, which is investing in yourself. And this is part of the reason my coaching is really expensive. So I do private coaching and consulting, and it's super expensive. So if you want to talk to me about that, you can, but it's very expensive. Now, it's very expensive because, one, I actually know what I'm doing. And two, I want you, the client, to have skin in the game. Cheap coaching, stuff like that, is really not valuable for anybody. People will just take advantage. They'll find ways to be lazy. So I'm a big fan of the skin in the game thesis in many ways. And I think you should always be thinking about ways to increase skin in the game. A lot of success is another thing we didn't talk about is you want structures working with you rather than against you. I was talking about this with a client the other day. And how important it is that if you want to succeed in certain areas, that you have as many structures in place that are going to sort of help propel you automatically to your goal rather than hold you back. What are some of these structures? Well, your friend groups, the people you work with, right? If you have a fitness goal and everybody you hang out with is just a fat slob who, is constantly eating, drinking, that's really hard to stay in that sort of structure and be like a complete anomaly and constantly work against that. So the realistic thing is, if you want to succeed, you got to start changing your environment. You have to start changing the structures that are either working for or against you. And you want the structures working for you. And these are very simple things, right? You want to be a successful business owner, hang around other successful business owners, right? You want to be successful in your fitness pursuits, hang around people that actually give a damn about being healthy, eating well, exercise, and stuff like that, right? Get the crap out of your house, the structures in your house, right? You want to stop having that pint of mint Oreo every night. Clean out your fridge and freezer so it's not even there. Structures matter, not just because it's about avoiding temptations, but, decision power is somewhat limited. And the less sort of yes or no decisions you have to make throughout the day, the more you have in reserve for the tougher battles you'll have to fight, right? So, just like get stuff out of the way and automate more of your success, right? Like have it so you don't have to think about whether you're going to have eggs or breakfast or cheap breakfast cereal, because you don't even have cheap breakfast cereal as an option. That's what I'm saying, right? You just have your eggs. You can have your healthy omelet, or you can fast, right? Where the only options you have are like good or better, not good or bad. Structures matter. Your environment matters. There's this cliche that you're kind of like the average of the 5 people you hang around with. And, I think that's generally true. I think that's generally true. Right. So if you want to change, things about your life, you should think about seriously changing the things that are sort of in your life that surround you. And people's a big one. And that's hard. That's hard to do, but nobody said this would be easy. Thanks for that comment, Alex. Brendan says, "What resources would you suggest for someone to look into getting published?" Yeah, that's a great question. So, like I said, read 5 good books. When I was first interested in getting published, I can't tell you the titles now because this was so many years ago, but there are a number of books out there on how to get an agent, how to write a book proposal. So these are important things to learn how to do. You do want to figure out how to get an agent because with traditional publishing, agents are kind of your way in to the negotiation table and to pitch to stuff like that. So first step is, how do you get an agent? You want to figure out how to contact agents, how to pitch agents, how to write a crafty book proposal, what goes into that. You also want to be a good writer. So books like The War of Art, I would also recommend On Writing Well by William Zinsser, and Elements of Style by Strunk and White. And you also want to write a lot. So one thing that was always good for me then and now is I've always had a blog. I've always been writing. And this is important because it can not only, help build an audience, but it gets your ideas out there in a rough draft format, and you can refine those ideas over time. So many of my books and articles feature content that originally came out in a really half-baked way on a blog or something like that, social media post, right? That was refined over time, that was sort of pressure tested by feedback from other people. So there's this kind of constant drafting process I have. And that was always really useful as well. So yeah, getting books on crafting good book proposals, I think, is really important. Getting an agent, actually getting your writing craft down. And you do that not just by reading writing books, but by actually writing, and writing a lot. I mean, I typically write anywhere between 2 to 10,000 words per day. I write a lot because it's just sort of what I do, and it's really important. And then, I would get Pressfield's book too, to help you with the mindset behind all of it. So Godspeed, my friend. Good luck. All right. Sammy says, "You know me so well. This is very useful." Thanks. I'm glad you think that, Sammy. I hope it is. Like I said, this is not always the typical theme we do here. Haley says, does not asking permission also apply to one spouse? Yeah, I clarified at the beginning. I'm not telling you to go make anybody mad. Or if you're a kid, don't ask your parents. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying is people often feel like they need, let me say it this way. They feel like they need like some expert's approval to do something. You don't need an expert approval on anything, my friends, right? And people often feel like they need their own approval. Like they need to feel like they've reached some level of expertise themselves before they can do something. That's what I'm challenging. That's what I'm saying. You don't need that. And in fact, if you're ever going to get to a sort of expert level yourself, you need to just get started, right? You need to start learning by hard experience, right? And look, I mean, there's so many things that we don't need expert approval for. And this isn't to say that experts can't be helpful or can't be useful. I've had so many good coaches in my life that have helped guide me. Some of them very expensive, some of them good, some of them bad, right? That's part of the learning process too. That's part of the experience. Is you'll find great mentors, you'll find poor mentors, but you don't need anybody's permission to start pursuing your goals. And if you're waiting for that permission fairy, there's just never going to be a point where you're going to feel completely satisfied and comfortable. So you just need to commit, and you need to start going. Don't make your spouse mad. But I never had to deal with that because Christine, my wife, is amazing. She's amazing. She's beautiful. She's incredible. And she always supported me. We met when I was in college, and I told her my crazy ideas, and she wanted me to go for it. So that is something that I was, really just fortunate to have. She was willing to take these risks with me, and she helped me in many, many ways. Would I have done them anyways? Almost certainly. And I think she probably saw that I was somebody who probably wasn't going to be deterred by anybody's opinions at that point. So yeah, let's do one more and then we'll sign off here. Brendan says, I should probably learn to spell before getting published. Well, you'd be surprised, there's there's just a lot of crap out there. So you obviously don't have to be a great writer to get published. But you do, there's different games. Let me end with this. There's different games. I think you should try to be good at pretty much all of them. Some people are really good at the marketing game, but they're actually really bad at the writing game. And they're really good at marketing their books, but I think their books suck. But they get books published because they're good marketers. And publishers, one thing publishers care about is whether you're going to sell books. That's, in fact, probably the biggest thing publishers care about. So, Brendan, if you study how to write a good book proposal, one of the major sections of that is, what is your marketing plan? What you have to do for a book proposal is you kind of have to pitch and convince a publisher that they're not going to lose money with you and give them a lot of confidence that they'll actually make money from you. So there's a lot of people out there who are great marketers, but very poor writers, but the publisher doesn't really care because they can sell books. They've got the marketing game down. Plus publishers, look, they've got a lot of editors. I mean, my first book, this one here, I had 5 editors on this project. Now, I don't think I needed that. It's kind of like an Office Space experience where, in Office Space, he's got 5 different bosses, each telling him different conflicting things. It was kind of like that for this book. Really confusing and unhelpful, but look, publishers, they can clean up a lot of slop. What they really care is that you're going to be able to actually, move product in a sense. So, but I was never interested in that. Yes, I am interested in marketing. I wanted to obviously sell books. I still do. So please buy my books if you haven't. I would really appreciate it. I wanted to provide good content. I wanted to talk about things that I thought were interesting and helpful. And that's why I wanted to write this book. That's why I had to start again. I left my agent. I left my publisher because they didn't want to back these crazy new ideas I had because they were so different. But what mattered to me was that I wrote about the things that I thought were important. I cared about. So I was willing to take that risk, and I'm glad I did. It has been definitely worth it. So I didn't need anybody's permission for that. In fact, I didn't have their permission. They were explicitly saying, no, you do not have permission to do this. You're going to keep writing about this, or it's or that's it. And I said, that's it. I'm going to write about the thing I want to write about. And here we are. And now it's in Chinese. Look at that. Now it's in Chinese. Okay, I'm signing off. Let me know if you guys found this helpful or any comments that you have. Maybe you want to share one of your experiences of getting started. I think this is an important theme. It's hard to, I think, articulate apart from an experiential perspective. And I hope it inspires you. I hope it inspires you to go after something today. So please do like, comment, share, subscribe. We'll talk to you at least by tomorrow because we have Dan John on the Old Fitness channel. So we'll see you then. Bye-bye.